This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Stone Glacier. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Stone Glacier, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in the studio. Talk is Sheep is... This is the best time of year. There's so many great stories, so many guys out and gals getting after it and doing some great stuff. And two BC homeboys that just get things done. You guys have done so much over the years and had some epic years. Mountain hunting, and you guys are known for your mountain experiences. So Anthony Klubi, Brandon Roth, we got you guys on the podcast. Welcome back, gents. Just coming out of the mountains with, I see curly horns behind you, and quite often we see big black, little black mountain goats, and but they're pretty big by most people's standards. But this time you guys came back with something a little different, pretty epic. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle.
Thank you,
Greg.
Gentlemen, the dynamic duo.
My God,
So September 23rd, we're 5-6 weeks into the season, 7 weeks, I guess it is. And it's been pretty epic for certainly for the resident community, and some amazing stones and just some really good guys that get after it. And I know you guys have been working hard in the mountains and got the monkey off your back. So we're excited to jump into it and hear all about your stories and escapades in the mountains. So over to you, boys. We'll just let you weave and wind and tell the story of your epic mountain hunt.
Well, this year we did 2 trips this year. Started off with opener. Brandon and I, my uncle Mike, and our buddy Caleb hiked in for opener and for the first 9 days of season. And we'll just go you want to start day by day with all that and work our way?
Sounds pretty good. Yeah, it sounds. All I can say is whatever you guys do for a living, I'm in the wrong profession, man. Like 2 trips and that the season hasn't really even started. So nicely done.
Oh yeah, we got lots more coming up still. But yeah, so the 4 of us headed north there, I think 3 days before opener. And we spent 2 days, the first 2 days, or day before season, hiking in. Got into the start of sheep country the first day, and I don't think we saw much that first day other than people and a few goats.
Yeah, a few goats. And people.
Maybe some lambs and ewes. And that was pretty good push in. Day 2, we made another big push into the back, or further in, I should say, and actually halfway to where we were headed, we sat down and we're glassing some goats, and we actually had a wolverine come out of the draw right below us.
Yeah,
and came running over. That was kind of cool. We got to watch him for about 20 minutes. He'd kind of after he spotted us, he'd run away. He would turn around, and then he would puff up and kind of stomp the ground at us. And then he'd turn and he'd run another 20 yards and stop and stomp the ground at us. That was kind of cool experience. And then pushed further back in. We around lunchtime, I think, maybe a little bit later, we got up to a ridge and we glassed 7 or 8 rams. 7 rams across a valley. One looked pretty good. So we ended up dropping camp and making a beeline push over to those rams. They were probably about 3-4K as the crow flies through a valley. And we got about halfway there, just getting down into the draw where we were going to lose sight of them. And I looked up and a herd of goats were moving in on them. And as luck would have it, they the whole herd of nannies and kids walked over and bumped those rams. And we sat there for a while and watched them. And the goats turned around and started walking away. And the rams kind of looked like they were going to settle back in bed. So we ended up pushing on. That took us a few hours to get over there and crawled up onto our vantage point that would have brought us into a couple hundred yards of the rams. And we got over there, and unfortunately they had disappeared on us. And I think 30 or 40 lambs and ewes ended up showing up out of that valley. Yeah, there's lots of them in there. And unfortunately, into the next valley where the rams headed, we knew there was 2 other groups of guys. So we kind of just left those sheep, started the long hike back to where we'd left camp, and kind of pushed through the head of a couple other valleys, there a couple other draws to peek down into them. We bumped a wolf at 600 yards that night. I think that was about it for that day.
That's pretty well it. Yeah, I got back to camp and ate dinner. And the next day, we kind of stayed around camp and did a bunch of glassing and stuff. We split up. Caleb and I went one way, and Mike and Anthony went another. You guys glassed up a few rams and a bunch of lambs and ewes. We glassed up 4 goats and 3 rams. And then we ended up back at camp and made the decision to push in even further the next day.
Yeah, well, and then when we got back to camp, after spending 9 hours up on our glassing knob, didn't see much, sat through some pretty good rain that day and really windy, kind of froze that day. Get back to camp and we're cooking dinner, and we turn around and look, and there's about, I don't know, another 7 or 8 rams with some lambs and ewes had fed out to right where we were sitting all day long. Yeah, nothing even close to legal, but yeah, sit there for 9 hours and you don't see anything within several kilometers of you, and then you move a kilometer back to camp, and all of a sudden 30 sheep are sitting where you were all day. So
sweet.
Yeah, and then so we weren't seeing much for rams that we were interested in that general area at that point after 3 days.
Just lots of people.
Yeah, unfortunately, lots of people. Several groups. I think there was 5 or 6 other groups that we could see across other ridges from where we were. One other camp in the same kind of valley that we were at the opposite end. And so we made the decision that the next day we were going to move another, I think we went another 15K deep, something like that. And yeah, so we made another big push into there. I don't think we saw much of anything that day. Just the four goats that we'd been watching. We had way too early in the trip for goats. We'd kind of put them in our back pocket. We knew there was some good goats in there. But that was for like day 8, day 9 kind of thing. So day 4, we started, day 4, we packed up camp and started to make the push. And somebody might have taken the wrong trail. Ended up through some pretty nasty buckbrush and down into a creek draw that we probably had no business being in, but that's all part of the fun. And just after we pushed out into the creek bottom, we turned around and looked up, and there it was a sow grizz with 2 cubs, probably not 150, 200 yards from where we were in the bush there. So that's always exciting. We watched them for probably half an hour until they kind of moseyed along away from us. And then we started quite a climb up out of there. A little bit further back in, that was a good 4 hours hiking through the rain.
Yeah.
And I don't think we saw anything else other than those goats that night.
No,
we had to go a little bit further than we'd planned to find water.
Yeah.
So we didn't get camp set up till almost dark, I think.
Yeah.
just glassed what we could from camp. Kind of stopped raining probably about half hour before we started to set up camp. So we glassed a little bit of stuff that we could see, not much. And then the next, so yeah, yeah. So the next day we headed up, pushed in a little further, kind of got up on the highest peak we could, and spent the day glassing from there.
Super windy.
Yeah, windy, cold.
Yeah, very cold and windy that day. We glassed up like 5 different rams, but they were all short and small.
Yeah, nothing that we were interested in, anyways.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that was it. Headed back to camp.
Yeah.
Checked out a few more draws on the way back to camp. Ended up seeing 3 or 4 more rams on the way back to camp, but again, nothing we were interested in. So that was that day. And then the next day, we were heading back over to our glassing knob, and we actually ran into 3 guys that we didn't know were in there. And the day before, they'd actually gone over and killed 2 of those goats we were looking at, and ended up being really good guys. They got themselves a couple of really, really nice goats. I think the one was well over 10 inches and about 10 years old, they figured, and the other one wasn't very far behind them. So good on those boys. They killed them in kind of a nasty spot. So that kind of blew our backup plan for that area. So yeah, we just pushed further back in. Actually, that was when we spotted the big ram.
Yeah, because we didn't quite make it to our glassing point, and we could see there was like 5 or 7 rams.
Yeah, it started as 1.
Yeah.
And he disappeared behind a rock. We never got a good look at him. So me and Mike dropped down a spine a couple K to get a better look at him. And from there, we could see that there was 5 or 6 rams we could see at the time, something like that. And it looked like 2 in the group. Definitely needed a closer look. But it was going to be a long push to get to them. And we knew that had we gotten lucky there, we'd been spending the night on the mountain. And we didn't really bring enough food or anything for that, but we made the smart decision and pushed on. Did about a 12-kilometer loop over to where those rams were. And got over there, got into about 300-400 yards where we'd left the rams bedded. But at this point, we hadn't had eyes on them for probably 3-4 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
And the last 3 years, all of our sheep hunting has been with my Uncle Mike. He was kind of he was one of my big hunting mentors growing up, and a big reason why I love hunting so much nowadays. So it's kind of just been an agreement that when we're sheep hunting with Uncle Mike, he gets first shot, no matter what. We want to get him a ram before he can't climb the mountains anymore. So once we got over there, Caleb and Brandon kind of hung back and were kind of just watching for us. And me and Mike crept in a little bit. And as we were starting to creep in, 2 of the banana rams came up out of the draw and started climbing and going over the top. And we're like, perfect. We're going to be 200 yards from these rams, and the big ones haven't come out yet. This is going to be great. We kind of creeped in a little bit further, and me and Mike ended up about 120 yards from where we figured the rams were bedded. But once we got over there were so many nooks and crannies, and we couldn't find them. We didn't even know if they were in there still. We sat there for probably about an hour at least waiting. And at that point, it was probably about 6 o'clock-ish, something like that. And we knew from there we had about 12 kilometers back to camp. So we were hemming and hawing on how long we were going to stay there on a ram. We didn't know it was legal or not. And we still had another 4 or 5 days that we could hunt in there. And at that point, we knew we were the only guys in that area. So we kind of hemmed and hawed at what we should do. The decision was made to kind of kick some rocks off, make a little bit of noise, see if we could stand them up. And that didn't work. So we ended up backing back out of there. And Brandon and Caleb decided that they were going to push over the top to see if they could get another look from a different angle, and Mike and I were kind of gonna go around the face and work our way around the face and see if they'd come around. And Brandon and Caleb took off, and Mike and I took off up out of the bowl the opposite direction, climbed up out of there, get to the top of the bowl. We're standing there catching our breath, and like dummies, kind of talking a little bit loud, and we turn our heads, and there's 2 rams standing about 300 yards from us, staring right at us. It ended up being the 2 little banana rams that we'd seen last. And so we're kind of just standing there, not really doing anything. And a couple seconds later, the rest of the band feeds over the top of the mountain, skylined on a snow patch. And it's like, oh, crap, now we got 9 or 10 rams, whatever it was. And 2 of them looked pretty good. And of course, they saw us standing there in the open, and so they turned around, they bailed off the backside, and as soon as they did, me and Mike started running straight up the hill for them to try to get a look at them. And turns out Brandon and Caleb were on the backside of the knob, and the sheep bumped into them, did another U-turn, started coming back our way, and I met the whole band at about 15, 20 yards, right as we were both coming across the top. And of course, the big ram was in the back, so I couldn't tell what he was. They all scattered. And there was one where the second biggest ram kind of stopped 50 yards from me, skylined, and got a good look at him, and was able to age him at a 6-year-old, very close to full curl, but not something we were interested in at all. I could see the big ram kind of just going around the bottom, and they dropped off into a bowl. So at that point, Mike and I met up with Brandon and Caleb, and we went the 600-700 yards, whatever it was, over to the bowl, got along the ridge, and the rams were all right there, about 350 yards from us. And but it was like 150 feet of just cliff, no way to get down to them. The rams are right down, right where the cliff meets the shale, just no way to get to them, or to get lower on him to tell if he was full curl or not. Unfortunately, he only gave us about 10 to 15 minutes to try to age him. And when I threw the spotter up initially, I was like, oh yeah, 8-plus-year-old ram. I was pretty confident when I first threw the spotter up. And on his right-hand side, it looked like a clear 8. And we got about 5 minutes of him bedded, but we could only see his right-hand side. And I kind of got the feeling like, I don't know how confident I am in shooting a sheep on age. We'd much rather it be full curl, especially seems how I'm not the one pulling the trigger. I'm trying to age this ram for Uncle Mike. The last thing I want to do, is tell somebody else, okay, shoot that ram, and he's not legal. Like, I want to see a clear 8 and then some. Because after a few minutes, the ram got up and turned, and at that point, we were still kind of pretty confident that he was 8, and then he turned, and we got a look at his left-hand side, and I could not see that ring that I thought was 8, and there was absolutely no way we could get to a level to tell if he was full curl. Like, he wasn't tipped 3-4 inches over. It was it was going to be a squeaker by full curl if it was. So we knew we weren't shooting on that. And after about 15 minutes, the rams moved out past where we could shoot or recover them. So we just walked away. It's none of it. I found it a lot easier to walk away from that ram than I thought it would prior. The fact that we were all just wanted to be so positive before we pulled the trigger on anything. It was so easy to walk away from that ram. Later in the tent watching video, when we were pretty confident that he was 8 or older, made it not so easy. But I've had a lot of mixed reviews on that ram. I've showed that ram to a lot of people that I trust, and I've had everything from 7 to 10 years old on that ram. So it's not easy. Actually today I was going through my phone, kind of clearing up some junk video and stuff, and I'd found some video that I hadn't gone through while laying in the tent. And up until this point, I was very confident that we let our legal ram go. But after watching that video I have of him today, I'm not so confident in it anymore. I'm really glad we let him walk. He's going to be, he'll be a very good ram next year, whether he's 8 or 9 or 10 next year. He'll definitely be legal, and he'll be a very nice ram next year. So, it was a good learning experience. That was one thing we got out of this trip as we go on through the next few days here. But we got a lot of really good time behind the glass this trip, and it was very beneficial.
Yeah, big time.
How many sheep do you guys think you've seen? Or sounds like you got into a lot of sheep, right?
That first trip, I think we ended up seeing 60 to 70 rams, somewhere in there. And probably, I don't know how many lambs and ewes, well over 200 lambs and ewes, like lots of sheep, and probably 50, 60 goats.
Yeah.
There's lots of animals.
Couple
that's for
Wolverines.
Sure. Yeah, 3. Actually, so that night, after that ram moved out to the point where we knew we weren't going to pursue him anymore, or at least not that day, we started what ended up being just over 12-kilometer trek back to the tent. And Caleb was slightly ahead of us, and we were getting back just at dark, and there was actually a Wolverine standing at our tents just about to crawl underneath and see what we had to eat in there. So glad he didn't rip up our tent.
Yeah.
But yeah. You want to go, or you want me to keep talking?
Yeah, so that was like a 25K day. It was pretty good. The second day, we all were kind of like a little lazy in the morning.
Well, it was pretty foggy that morning.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
We looked out, the tent was foggy, couldn't really glass, so we all just kind of chilled. Uncle Mike, he's a early bird, so he got up and went and checked his bowl. That's like 200 yards from the tent, and spotted another 16 rams.
16 rams, yeah.
16 rams in this bowl. So we all got shot up out of bed and packed our stuff, hiked around. I think it was like a 3 or 4K hike to get up above them. And then we snuck down into
142 yards.
142 yards on 16 rams, and got to spend like an hour and a half glassing every single one of them, aging them all, which was really sweet. There was one full curl 6-year-old,
which I didn't tell anybody at the time.
It was not a shooter.
We snuck in with one spotter, and I crept down where the other 3 were. They couldn't really see the bottom rams, and there was one ram in particular that we were interested in, or Mike was interested in, and I crept down this knife ridge spine, and on belly over the hill, kind of with the spotter 45, then turned sideways and got in on them. And there ended up being 3 7-year-old rams. The ram we were interested in ended up being 7, and all 3 7-year-olds were probably half an inch shy of the bridge at least.
Yeah.
And there was another 2 or 3 6-year-olds in that band as well. And the one 6-year-old he was probably full curl by an inch or two. Yeah. And I didn't tell them at the time. I didn't even tell them until after we left, to be honest. But I just said, no, there's nothing in there that we're interested in. We had all decided that we're looking for 8+ and over the bridge is kind of what we were after. So yeah, that was an awesome learning experience to sit that close to 16 rams and look over everything. And there was a couple of those 7-year-olds had a lot of false in them. Got excellent video of them. We could all kind of look over it after and practice aging, and that was a huge confidence booster, especially after the day before when we let that other ram walk. Kind of got my confidence up a little bit. For all of us, it was a great learning experience. And then I think we actually ended up bumping more rams that day going back to camp. Or maybe we were already back at camp and we glassed up some more.
There was that 5.
There was another 5, that we glassed up. We didn't get an age on any of them, but I would say the biggest ram was probably 3/4 curl, maybe 7/8 in that group.
Yeah.
And I think this puts us at like day 7.
So I think the day after that is when we started our path.
Yeah, so this put us at day 7, and we figured we had 2 to 3 days to hike out. Yeah. And we were looking at some pretty crappy weather for those last 3 days. So we looked over pretty much all that country that we were going to be able to access within the amount of time that we had. So at that point, we decided we were going to start hunting our way back. And big long day that next day, pushing out of there. Had pretty good weather for that. Stopped down by the creek, and where we'd seen the grizzly bears on our way in, and we're like, no fresh sign, nothing, no bears. And then Mike decided to walk about 20 feet over to grab some water, and found a pile that was still steaming of a rather large boar. It was not from the sow and cub, so we made quick of that stop and got out of there. I think that day we saw a few more sheep, probably ones we'd already looked over, nothing interesting. And and then the next day we ended up making another big push. In 2 days we pushed out of that area. The last day, the first night that we started hiking out, that night ended up being pretty brutal.
Yeah.
We got into some major winds and some rain, and the last day hiking out, same thing all day. It was just pouring rain on us
and foggy,
couldn't see anything, high winds, and so we ended up cutting that trip 1 day short. But we knew that we couldn't push in any further at that point.
It was so windy that night that our tent was like folding in half, and I was taking my trekking poles to try to support the tent and the poles in the tent to keep it from whacking us while we were trying to sleep. Yeah. But yeah, it was pretty good.
But not to bash on anybody, what tent are you guys running?
I'm running an MSR Hubba Hubba.
Yeah.
He's not.
That trip, I have a Hubba Hubba, but that trip I was using that new scree tent.
Just the poles weren't holding in the wind, or?
I didn't orientate the tent to make up for the direction of the wind. So
it was a pretty makeshift camp that night. We were all pretty beat. We had a lot of elevation that day, and by the time we got to where we camped, it was pretty much just throw the tent wherever we could. And we weren't really thinking about the wind. Even us, like, Mike got the bad side of the tent, and he had a tent slapping in his face all night. It was a pretty sleepless night for all of us.
Yeah, I think I did like half the guide wires too. I was just like, screw it.
So,
Slapped
but
it up and tried to keep safe, I guess.
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, both tents made it through the night. It was just
It was
just windy.
very windy.
Yeah, and then that last day that we hiked out, it was socked into the valley floor, like we couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
Even by the time we got back to the highway at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, it was still miserable weather. Yeah, so that was trip one. It was a great trip. You know, I always enjoy spending time in the mountains with my uncle and Brandon and Caleb, and you know, good company, great learning experiences. Got to look over a ton of sheep. Yeah, met a couple good dudes in the mountains. It's always nice when you run into somebody and they're friendly and you can have a good BS with them and nobody's pissy. So that's always good because I've had the other and that's never fun. So
you guys are kind of legends in you've done a lot of, killed some big stuff and documented it, and people know who you are. Did those guys recognize you? Did they know who you were?
no, actually in that spot, none of the guys we bumped into did, I don't think.
Not that time.
Not that time. We ran into other guys in that area that knew who we were. But yeah, I don't know. We're not a legend by any means. I've had some dumb luck in the last couple of years, I'll say that. But
okay, well, whatever you want to chalk it up to. But
there's a lot better. There's a lot more skilled guys out there than me. So I just want that on the record.
We're still learning.
Just not as successful. That's all right, buddy.
Yeah. So no, everyone. We ended up bumping into 5 people throughout that trip, and yeah, they're all good dudes. So it's really nice when it goes that way in the mountains. You know, it's public land, and you know, there's no reason to get in a fight over it. You know, it's a big area, and everyone we talked to saw sheep, and nobody killed anything in there from what I heard this year. So, yeah, just, you know, I'd say if you run into people, you know, have a good BS and pick your way, and each guy go his own way kind of thing, right? You know, that's what I try to do. I've come into a spot behind somebody, and before, you know, I've been in Region 7 where there's, you know, 5 or 6 trucks at every trailhead. And, yeah, you know, what are you going to do? So if I come in behind somebody, I just try to let them have their right of way, and I'll just go the opposite direction. Doesn't bother me any. So, yeah. Got anything else on the first trip?
No, it's pretty well lit for that. It was probably one of the best trips I've done so far, with being able to spend time with rams and judge them and stuff like that. It was good. Just like Anthony said, a learning experience for sure.
Super cool. So it set up your next trip pretty good. So that was, you guys went in for the opener for that one? You guys hiked in it before the season, and then, so what day did you get out? Like the 10th or something like that? 9th?
Yeah, I think it was the 9th we came out, I believe. Yeah. Something like that, yeah.
And we hiked in the 31st and came out the 9th.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
So did you guys always have a plan that, okay, we're going to go in, we're going to try the opener, and if we're not successful, we're going back later in the season? Was that always on the agenda, or was that a discussion after the fact?
No, so that's, well, we'd actually discussed it earlier in the year because Brandon went to Argentina, and I had some other stuff planned for this year. I drew, or my uncle drew a permit to company in the Yukon, so I'll be going to the Yukon for moose with my uncle here in 2 days.
Yeah.
So between that and me and my brother and my son in a group draw, we were lucky enough to draw bison this year for January. So, you know, springtime, the plan was one sheep hunt, and that was it. There was no intentions whatsoever of doing a second hunt. And, well, actually, I guess that's not true either. I had another buddy who wanted me to join along on a hunt that he was going on with his son, and originally I said I would, and then all the draws came out, and then we were kind of up in the air, and Buddy ended up having to cancel his trip for other reasons, so I didn't go on that one. And then we were gonna do kind of just came up that another buddy wanted to do a trip with the two of us, and he hadn't sheep hunted in a lot of years, and kind of had found a renewed um, drive for it, and wanted to go in with us and kind of helping us, help us a little bit chasing our first rams. He'd killed a ram before and was more interested in helping us a little bit, so he was going to come in with us. And unfortunately, life happens, and about a week before we were supposed to leave, that trip kind of got kiboshed. And then it came down to, well, we're pretty busy at work, and Brandon was out of holidays. So we were kind of like, well, do we still go sheep hunting? Do we do another trip? We've already done one trip and had a great time. Like, it was an awesome trip. Do we cancel? Do we go chase elk, put some meat in the freezer kind of thing? And probably due to me, I pushed a little bit harder to go sheep hunting. You know, I've been fortunate in my life. I have killed a few things, and I've always had full freezers. And the sheep drive in the last 5 years has just been so much higher than the drive to go moose or elk hunting or anything like that. I just want to spend as much time in the mountains, look as many sheep as I can. So I was kind of pushing them for that, and we made a plan to head north again. This time we only had 7 days, plus 2 days travel. Yeah, so we loaded up and headed north again.
Region 7 this time. It was an area I've never been to, so it was a new spot for me. And Anthony tried to hunt there last year and it didn't go as planned, so he wanted to go back. Yeah, so we went.
I grew up on the Region 7 side. I spent a lot of time up there. I lived in Fort Nelson for a while, Fort St. John. So I spent a lot of time up that way when I was younger hunting with my uncles. Never sheep, but we chased caribou and elk up there. And I always wanted to go spend more time up there because even the second trip we discussed going back into where we were for opener to get another look at that ram or try to or see what else we could find. And we just decided to go see new country. Neither of us had been into the area we were heading into. Yeah, so we decided to go there. We made the drive up and were tempted by a legal bull moose the first night, not far off from the highway. And we had to, it was about 600-700 yards off the highway. And so we had to remind ourselves that we were there for sheep and not a moose. So we let him walk away. And then that first night, we sat up for a couple hours enjoying wild sheep whiskey and listened to bull elk bugle their face off for about 2 hours, wondering why we weren't chasing elk the next morning for opener. Yeah, headed in the next morning. Met a couple guys at the trailhead and had a good chat with them. And kind of gave each other a rundown on what we were planning. We were planning to go to two very opposite directions, so had a good chat with them, and then away we went. Had a pretty good push into there the first day, and saw one ram on the way in. It was he was a long ways off, right on the tippy top of a mountain, and it was his left-hand side was actually clubbed, deformed. He was so far away we couldn't tell exactly what it was looking like, but it just looked like a big ball on the side of his head. And his other side looked like he was probably like a 3/4 ram. So we didn't spend too much time on him. We knew we weren't climbing that particular mountain out of opposite direction that we were headed. So we pushed on further in there that day and ended up seeing 23 lambs and ewes that night. Couple goats, yeah.
Couple billies, couple nags, kids.
Yeah. And hiking back towards camp, a covey of ptarmigans tried to scare the shit out of me. So one of them ended up in the jet boil that night.
Oh, we had him over the fire.
Yeah, one of them ended up in the jet boil. Yeah, and then you can take over what happened the rest of that night.
Yeah, so we weren't like up in the alpine or anything like that. That was on them. Set up camp for that night. Both went to sleep very well. We were both pretty tired. And then I wake up to Anthony hitting me saying there's something chewing on my stuff at like 1:30 or 1:45 in the morning. And it just so happened a porcupine decided to come under the vestibule of the tent and decided to eat my bino harness and my boots. Completely destroyed my boots to the point where we were both like, oh shit, like our trip might be over. He kept coming back every like half hour, 45 minutes. We kept shooting him off, threw some sticks and stuff at him, and he just very persistent, kept coming back until 5 in the morning. And then finally after that, like scared him off again, and he decided not to come back after that. But then we just did not sleep at all that night. Bino harness was like hanging on by a thread, so we leuco taped the crap out of it, and he chewed on my jet boil cover as well. The boots I threw on and they still felt good. There was no issues there. So
it was both tongues,
yeah,
the leather that's in between the tongue and the side of the boot, down the side where all your hooks are for tying your laces up. And yeah, at 2 in the morning we thought the hunt was over, but we got lucky there.
Yeah. So the next day we laced them up and they kind of walked around, made sure they felt okay still and they were good. So we decided to push further back after that. Went up another valley. That was fun, going up a creek draw with no trail, kind of zigzagging back and forth and up hills and through the bush and whatnot. And I think we did.
We pushed another 13K
in that day. Going following this creek. And then we set up tent. I don't think we glassed anything up that day.
We didn't see anything that day.
Yeah, we saw nothing.
Yeah.
Set up the tent in this creek bed is probably like 150, 200 yards wide. Just kind of set up right in the middle. Anthony brought his pack alarm from Blake and Chuck there. So we had that all set up, which is actually pretty nice to have. Kind of gives you that little bit of peace of mind while you're sleeping.
We didn't see a whole lot of fresh bear sign headed in, but some sign. And my family's had their experiences in that area.
Yeah.
In that region before, I should say. And so it was a nice little peace of mind.
Next time we're going to bring 2 so we can set up one at ground level for porcupines and then another one a bit higher for grizzlies. Yeah, so then the next day we pushed even further back, went up another valley, checked a bunch of bulls, didn't see any sheep that morning, and into the afternoon saw a couple billies that day. Then on the way back to camp, Anthony glassed up 5.
It was 5 rams.
5 rams. Back towards the opposite direction that we came in the day before.
And at that point, we couldn't tell
Yeah.
what they were. I could just see horn on their head, and the sun was going down at that point, and they were in the shade. And
Yeah. really tough to see.
Yeah.
And we made it back to camp that night. Decided to glass in the morning to see if Anthony could locate them. And I was still in bed in the morning. He was up glassing, and I was in there looking for my caffeine pills or whatever. I was going to pop a couple because I was pretty tired that morning. And all I hear is him going, "Oh, a bear." And I'm like, "Oh, you see a bear?" He's like, "No, there's a bear." Yelling, and I guess there was a bear coming down the hill towards camp, just beelining for us.
Yeah.
If you want to, so
yeah, I was out of the tent probably 45 minutes before he was, and I had relocated the rams the night before, and that turned into 8 rams, I believe it was 8 or 9 rams. And at that point, I could judge them a little bit better to tell that there was at least 1 or 2 in the group that deserved a closer look. At this point, they're still probably 3 kilometers away as the crow flies, and clearly one was much bigger than everything else. So we wanted to get a closer look, but they were up feeding, so and Brandon was still in the tent. So,
and those billies were,
yeah, the one billy had worked his way back or around the face down the valley just above camp, probably about 1,600 yards above camp. And we had kind of talked about that trip about, being a little more open to shoot goats because, neither of us had shot one in a few years. And we'd kind of decided if by like day 4 or 5 we hadn't seen any sheep, we'd consider shooting some goats if we could double on them. And we're in a spot that we felt that even if we had to make 2 trips for a goat and a sheep, if we got one after, we could do that. But anyways, I'd been talking to Brandon about this billy and whatnot while I'm glassing these rams. And he told me, he's like, "I'm going to take some caffeine pills and get up here right away." So I heard some crinkling, and I thought he was popping the caffeine pills out. And then, I don't know, 10 seconds later or something, I heard it again. So I kind of lift my head off the spotter to be like, "Hey, how many caffeine pills do you take?" I got my head about 3 inches off the spotter, and all I see is the brown spot just full bore running down the hill straight for us. And yeah, I'm like, "Hey, bear." And he's like, "Oh, cool. Where is he?" And I'm like, "Get out of the tent. Bear's coming." Like, my rifle's in the tent zipped up. His is in the tent zipped up. So I'm scrambling over to get it, and got the gun out, and I'm yelling the whole time and get one chambered. And there was one little pine tree right on the edge of the creek, right where the gravel and the bush meet. And he was coming fast enough that I'd kind of made up my mind that if he passed that pine tree, he was gonna get it, because it only would have been a couple seconds and he would have been on us from there. And yeah, I don't know, whatever was, from the yelling at him or Brandon standing up out of the tent, whatever it was, he stopped in the pine tree and kind of stood there and looked at us for about 3 seconds, and then turned around and burned back up the hill. And I don't know if he was charging into camp on purpose, if he'd seen us, smelt us, if we were just in his way, I don't know. But at 6:30 in the morning, it gets the heart going anyways. So,
and Brandon's just popped caffeine pills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, he didn't need them after that. So
I was surprised how fast I got up and was loaded, ready to go. It was quick.
So, yeah, that was.
We never saw him after that. He went up the hill. We don't know what direction he went, left or right, or up and over.
Well, he didn't go up and over because at some point he would have cleared the brush. I didn't realize how, because at this point the whole trip we're just running the bottoms, checking drainages and stuff, and we hadn't actually climbed up the hillside there. Yeah. So neither of us had realized how tall that brush actually was until that bear disappeared into there, and it's like, oh crap, that brush is thicker than we thought it was. And yeah, we hung out at camp there for another 2 hours or so and just kind of kept an eye out for him. And that kind of put a quash on going up after the goats. I wasn't going to no reason to go into where a grizzly just went for a goat that we weren't super interested in. So we packed up camp and started heading out, or not out, sorry, heading the direction to change into the next valley. We were going to go up and over a ridge and into the next valley, and stopped to get some water just before we made the climb, and three guys popped out of the bush. So we thought we were the only ones in there. Yeah, so a couple guys from down south, and had a good chat with them. Good dudes, and they were after a goat where they were, and they'd seen a few sheep because where the valley they'd came out of was kind of our next plan if the next valley we were going into didn't work out. And they had spent 3 or 4 days up in there and told us that they hadn't seen anything. And so they sent them on their way. We started our climb and got up top and spent the night on the ridge up top there, and never relocated our rams at that point, because we'd cut the distance probably about half to where those rams were from where our camp was, but at a much better level. And didn't see them again that night at all. Saw some more lambs and ewes. Cow moose came bedded on top of the ridge with us 800 yards from our tent. And some goats, lambs, and ewes. That was it for that night. Next morning, got up and still didn't relocate the rams. Didn't see them at all. Had a couple bull caribou 1,000 yards from camp. Looked at them there for a while and had 3 more moose across the valley up on kind of the same elevation we were at. Same lambs and ewes were out. No sign. Actually, one other ram popped out of the next drainage over, but he was just a little dink ram. And then at that point, it was probably getting close to 10, 11 in the morning. We hadn't seen anything of interest, and at that point, we only had 2.5 days of our trip left, and so we were kind of talking about what we were going to do, if we were going to stay in that area, or there was some other areas that I knew we could kind of do 2-day trips into that I'd been into or my uncles had been into in the past and seen sheep. So we were kind of weighing whether or not it was worth heading that direction. And then we ended up relocating those 8 rams. They came up out of the timber. And we watched them for a while, and I still think the one ram was pretty good. He was very heavy. Still couldn't, I don't think he broke the bridge of the nose, but he was heavy enough he deserved a closer look. But after lots of looking at maps and what we could see of the face, we decided that there just was no possible way to actually access where those rams had been hanging out for the last 3 days. Several hundred feet of cliffs all around the bottom of the bowl, and where they're hanging out, you would have had, there's just nothing to hide behind. A clear line of sight across 1,500, 2,000 yards worth of shale to get to them, and you would have had to come straight down on them. And according to Onyx, it was like 45, 50 degree slope, so we figured our odds probably weren't very good there. So then we kind of made the decision to pull the pin out of there and go try another area for the last couple days of our hunt. So that was a good push out of there that day. Got back to the truck around dark, and ended up running into the guys again back at the trailhead. They were still camped out there, and had another good BS with them and kind of figured out what they had a couple days left in their hunt as well. And we didn't want to all end up in the same area, so we had a good chat with them, and we all kind of picked an area that we were going to go, and we set off for the last 2 days. kind of condensed our packs a little bit, left everything extra in the truck that we didn't need in the truck, which is a vital piece of the story later because my ears still aren't right. But yeah, so we headed into the new area the next morning. Kind of got a late start. We had planned on hiking by 5:30 in the morning and get in as far as we could before light, and that didn't work. We were pretty tired from the day before, and kind of slept in a little bit. But yeah, anyways, we started heading in and kind of got to the first point where we could really glass the hillside and picked up a very large grizzly bear. And we watched him there for a little while, put the spotter away, and we were just about to keep on going. And I threw the glass up one more time and saw 4 black spots run across the face, probably 3-4 kilometers down. And pulled the spotter back out, threw it back up, and yeah, sure enough, that's sheep. I think 4 ended up turning into like 12 sheep before we left that spot. And from there, we could tell that there was a couple good rams in there that needed a closer look. So we kept on going and got to the next glassing point, and 12 turned into 20. And all of a sudden we're looking at, and now at this point we can have a much better idea of what we're looking at, and we can tell that there's 20 rams that we're looking at. We just left an area that we spent 5 days and saw 10 rams.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we're looking at 20. So now we're getting excited. Pack the spotter back up, push in kind of to the last point of where we're going to make the decision of how to actually access these sheep, and throw out the spotter. And now we got 30 sheep, and now they're all spread out across this big face, and which was actually kind of inconvenient because most of the sheep were in between us and where the rams that we wanted to access were bedded. But we pushed on a little bit further, grabbed some water, and then pushed on further. And the rams that we were interested in at that point, there was 5 or 6 that were kind of bedded on one grassy knob, and the rest of the sheep were kind of spread out over probably 300-400 yards of the mountainside, just up and feeding. But those rams that we were interested in stayed bedded the whole time that we're moving in closer. We got to about 1 kilometer from them, and all of them had stood up and started feeding across. All the big rams, everything kind of joined the group and started feeding up the mountain. And they were very close. They were only 300-400 yards below, cliffs that if they went up into, they'd be up and over. And there's no way to get around that. Not quickly, anyways. You'd have to go up valley, and anyways. So we kind of just hunkered down there on that knob that we had. We had to make a pretty nasty drop at that point. Quite a bit of elevation down a pretty steep grassy hill. So we decided we were going to lose sight of them. So we just sat down there on the knob. We're like, we're not moving until they bed. And I think 16 of them kind of moved off up into the next little grassy knob and kind of fed around there for about half an hour and bedded back down. And in the meantime, as we're coming in and this is happening, the rest of the sheep had kind of moved to the left of the rams and down into some grassy draws and cleared the way for us to kind of move in on these rams.
Yeah, and the big one kind of just went and bedded on a ledge up above them all.
Yeah, so that ram, the one we, at this point, I caught a glimpse in the spotter of this ram for like 3 seconds. And then I was just kind of scanning over the whole band of rams, and I picked him up in the edge of my spotter for like 3 seconds, and then he disappeared up a rocky chute. And I was like, oh, that looked like an interesting sheep, right? Like he looked heavy. But the ram we were interested in was still with the others. He looked very close to full curl. He was pushing everybody else around. He was lip curling. He was butting heads, just chasing everybody. And so that was kind of the one we were focusing on. And we worked our way into, I think we got into about 1,200 yards of the rams. And we could see all of the rams except for two. The one that we were interested in, he'd kind of bedded on the backside of the knob, and I could see like just the top flats of his horn over the other sheep. But there was going to be absolutely no way to get a look at him unless he stood up and came back over to our side. The only other ram that we could see from there at that time, we could tell right away he was not something we were interested in. He was probably 6 or 7 in hindsight. I didn't spend that much time trying to age him. And I was like, well, I saw there was 3 other sheep that I'd kind of seen when I set the spotter up. I'm just going to pan over to these ones. And it's like, oh, there's 2. No, they're dinks. Pan over a little bit further, and it's like, oh, there we go. There's the big boy. That's what we're looking for. Like, just the sheer body size and shape of him, just right away stood out as that ram is clearly older than what everything else we're looking at, right? Right away, I could tell he was short, though. So, as excited as we were getting, we were trying not to get too excited. Because I could tell that he was definitely not going to break the bridge of the nose. But at 1,200 yards, we watched him for quite a while through the spotter. And even at that distance, we were pretty confident we were looking at a ram that was going to be well legal on age. And but at that point now we're almost level with the sheep, and it's a wide open face to them. So on the trajectory that we're on, there's no way we're getting closer to these sheep. So we had to drop back down the face and kind of get into this and side hill around, got into this draw and climbed back up to just below where the rams were. And got as far up as up that draw as we could, and then we took the spotter, rifles, a few little things, dumped our packs, and we belly crawled another 100 or 150 yards in closer or so, and threw up the spotter, and that's put it right on that one ram we were interested in, and that's when the nerves kicked in. We started shaking at that point, because right away we could see that he was he was going to be legal on age. We ended up spending an hour and a half
At least,
at that point on the ram. He was bedded the whole time, broadside to us. We must have counted rings 100 times at least, right? And it was as confident as I was to pull that trigger, it was an eerie feeling. Like, it was, for an hour and a half, I sat there counting and everything. It was never a question of it, was it 8 or more? We knew he was 8+. And so back to earlier, the last 3 years we've been hunting with Uncle Mike. So there's never been a conversation between the two of us, real conversation about who's going to pull the trigger, which we the guys we talked to the night before gave a shit for that. But we were both just happy to be there, and we both put a lot of miles in this year and in previous years, a lot of hard work, and we were both just happy to be there. And
just wanted to touch one.
just wanted to be involved, right? Both of us were going to be happy no matter what. And Brandon was just like, you take them. So I was kind of like, really? You sure? He's like, yep, you take them. And because the whole trip I'd planned on letting him take it. And anyways, he's like, yeah, take them. So I laid down, and I spent 20, 30 minutes just dry firing on him, trying to calm my nerves. It was...
I've never seen him shake so much.
even from 1,200 yards, man, I was like, the heart was going, right?
I was so excited.
A lot of guys know the story of my deer from last year, and I was shaking pretty hard on that deer. Like 200-inch mule deer got me going pretty good. But this was even more. Like with that deer, I was able to calm myself eventually enough to get off a good shot, and in a way more rush situation. And after 20, 30 minutes of dry firing, it was just like my heart's not even thinking about slowing down. So I guess we're going live here. And we couldn't have asked for a better day weather-wise. It was like 15 degrees, partially cloudy, no wind whatsoever. We had belly crawled out onto this little grassy knoll, built myself a nice backrest, and and then away we went. He gave me the go-ahead, and
once he racked one, that's when I started shaking. As bad as him.
Yeah, I racked one, and then I just put the safety on and kind of sat there for a while, and probably sat there for another 5 minutes just trying to calm myself. We couldn't believe we were finally in this situation after all this time. And so I touched the first one off, and I wind checked them. Wind was good, elevation wasn't. And Brandon called the shot out. I shot over him by a couple inches. And he just did a 180. And so I lined back up on him. I obviously probably was a little excited on the first one and pulled it a little high. My second shot, I touched that one off and made impact. And it was a little lower than I would have liked, but I hit him. And at that point, he kind of ran about 20 feet and stopped and turned head on, and I gave him another one, and that's when the cheering started. He took a little tumble, and so I got a little excited at that point watching him fall, and but that only lasted about 10 seconds. and then just that oh man, like we just shot a ram off age. I gotta get over there and make sure, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie, man, my stomach, that excitement lasted 10 seconds, and then my stomach was in a knot. Even though, like I said, I counted rings on him 100 times. We were both 100% confident right up till I pulled that trigger, and then it was just like, oh crap, let's go get I can't be excited until I have hands on him. And
people can't understand it, right? Like, you're like, because then they're like, well, you weren't that confident then, and it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You knew that ram was legal. I've been there, man. I'm just like, you just got to get there, and you just have to get there and see that ram. You have to see it.
Yeah, and even on my first goat, man, like I wanted it. I wasn't a super experienced goat hunter. I felt very confident I could judge billies and nannies. And, for me, my goal for myself on my first goat was just, a billy. Make sure you shoot a billy. And those goats I watched for hours, and I knew it was a billy when I pulled the trigger. I knew 100% it was a billy. I watched them pee, and but still, I had that feeling walking up to that goat, even though no matter what, that goat was legal. It was an adult goat, whether it was a billy or a nanny, it was legal. But I'd set that goal for myself that I was only going to kill a billy. And I had that same feeling that whole hike over to that billy until I didn't even touch the horns when I got over there. First thing I did was roll them over. And I was like, oh, thank God. I've never been so happy to see a beanbag in my life, right? So it's that same feeling with that sheep.
Yeah.
And we had some pretty nasty bouldery draw to cross to get over to him. And it took a little while, and Brandon was I was pushing Brandon hard. I pushed him hard a few days on this trip, man. Good on him for didn't complain once, and he kept up, and he was just like, just go, I'll catch up. And this, leading up to the ram, like, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to rush ahead of you, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as that ram hit the dirt, I'm like, I'm gone, man. Catch up when you can. And I probably got to the ram for about 15 minutes before he did. And just to finally get my hands on that ram and put my fingers on each one of those rings and count, it was just felt so good. It I don't know how to describe walking up on your first ram, man. There was a lot of emotions going on through there. So going into that trip, Brandon didn't know this about that area. My grandfather passed away in January of this year, and I was very close to him. He was another big part of getting me into hunting. Growing up, my dad was huge into fishing. We did lots of outdoor stuff, lots of fishing. My grandpa and my uncles were a big part of getting me into hunting. And then, that led into my dad hunting. We spent a ton of time in the bush now over the last 20 years. But, the last time I visited that area was in 2008 with my grandparents and my aunt and uncle on a caribou hunt. And I'd killed a caribou up there, and then we celebrated their anniversary in that mountain range that we were in. So at this point, I hadn't actually mentioned this to Brandon, and it was a lot of mixed emotions walking up on that ram. I was super happy, and it was hard too. It was like I said, it was the last spot I visited with my grandpa hunting in the mountains. So that ram meant a lot to me in that place that I killed him. And I'd been packing a little piece of grandpa around with me all season, showing him some new country that he hadn't seen before and taking him back to some of the places he used to hunt. And just all that added in made it an incredibly special ram to me.
If I knew this and he told me to shoot and I did, I'd be the biggest piece of shit in the world. Like that, yeah, it made it so much easier knowing that.
Yeah, it makes it a little extra special for sure.
Big time. Yeah, and being able to spend that with him and be a part of that was sweet.
When did you share that, Anthony? When did you tell Brandon that?
After we'd
laid hands on the
ram.
Yeah.
He walked up to me, and at that point I was still, when he caught up, I was still like just counting rings over and over and over and over again, right? I was surprised. We've always hunted opener or, that early part of August. When I walked up to that ram, I didn't realize how long his hair was going to be. And from the backside, it kind of made it a little bit difficult to count rings. So I was just sitting there going over rings for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, oh, he's 8 for sure. 100% he's 8. And So at that point, I hadn't really lost it yet. And then Brandon got up there and we went over it together and verified it. And, I kind of had my moment, just that whole thing of that area, to what that area meant to me with that ram. And at that point was actually, I don't even know if I told you at that point. I think we were getting ready to take pictures, and I pulled Grandpa, a little bit of Grandpa that I carry around to take a picture with. And I think that's probably when I told him. So, I mean, he knew that my grandfather had passed and all the hunting and stuff that I did with him, but I hadn't mentioned that fact that was the last time I hunted that area.
Yeah, I didn't know he was with you, and
I didn't know I was carrying him.
Yeah, I didn't know you even had him. I didn't know they celebrated their 40th anniversary there back in the day. Yeah, I had no idea.
There's the emotion of, the family connection, like your grandpa, all that. There's the achievement of killing that ram. I think you said 15 days, 179 kilometers on your boots that year. How many years have you been chasing, like collectively, and maybe break it down, Anthony, how many years you've chased sheep, and like how many, like if you counted your days and then you count your days, Brandon, what does that add up to? I'm just curious.
So I think I've only been doing like 4 years. I figured I've only actually been chasing sheep specifically since 2021. It was something I always wanted to do when I was younger, and kind of by the time I was getting into it, my uncles were kind of getting out of it. And at that time, I only ever hunted with family. I didn't have other friends or their parents that sheep hunted or anything like that I could go with. So I started my first sheep hunt, I guess, was 21 or 20, 22 maybe. It might have even been 22. But I've done 5 full sheep hunts. This would have been my 5th full sheep hunt. And I had 2 other trips that on day 2, both trips, we kind of had to end for one guy got kind of got hurt and kind of put a damper on that, so he pulled out. He wasn't going to be able to do the next 10 days in the shape that he was in. So we pulled out of that hunt, and then I had another hunt the year before that's on day 2. Buddy's dog actually started to have some health issues, and the plan was to pull out and kind of run the dog back to the vet and then go back in. And Buddy ended up falling violently ill, and he was in bed puking for the next 2 weeks, basically. So 7 attempts and 5 full sheep hunts. I think that was our shortest sheep hunt. All of our other sheep hunts have been 9 to 11 days long. So probably, roughly 45, 50 days in the mountain. And honestly, outside of this year, I never really kept track of my kilometers, but several hundred kilometers on the boots.
For sure.
Yeah.
And the year he went in, and was it 21, you said?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. That year I went in for goat with a buddy, and then glassed a bunch of sheep, but we went in for goat. And then the year after that is when I started hunting sheep specifically. But I think I've done 4 full sheep trips.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've done 3.
Yeah, this is actually our first hunt together without any other people.
Yeah.
Out of the last 3 years, this is the first time we've hunted just the 2 of us.
So what inspired you to pass off to no flip the coin, no nothing? It's like it's yours, Anthony. Why'd you do that, Brandon?
Well, like everyone always says, like it's so much harder to find a hunting partner than it is a spouse and all that nonsense or whatever. But I just know, like, with Anthony has that same drive as me to be in the mountains, and he just wants to be there. So even if I let him shoot first, he's going to come with me for the next 20 years until I shoot around. He's not a I killed one. I'm going to take a year or two off. He'll be there with me next year and every year following that until Mike gets one, until I get one, until his kid gets one. So it wasn't hard for me to tell him to shoot because we'll be back at it again in 10 months.
Super cool, man. A lot of respect for you to do that, Brandon. It's a big deal to let him step up like that. Super cool. And you kind of wonder, like, you didn't know the story about his grandpa, right? And it's just like the universe is weird that way. Sometimes shit happens, right? It's like, that's getting like way out there, but you kind of wonder, right? It's just kind of crazy that,
Yeah.
yeah.
It wasn't hard for me to tell him to shoot, but if now knowing that now too, I'm so glad that I wasn't the one that shot.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. He'd be like, "Oh, geez, sorry, man, sorry about that." It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mike missed out on this one. So, and then also William's a life member of the Wild Sheep Society BC, and he's diehard. So it was interesting because you talked, Anthony, about your family dynamic. Like your uncles were getting out of it about the time you were getting into it. And then, like, Mike's getting, like you said, you want to get him a sheep before he's too old for the mountains. But then there's William in the waiting. So does he got the sheep bug when you came home with that ram this year? What does that look like for him?
Oh yeah, he was losing his mind for sure. The plan this year was to kind of start with some closer to home goat hunts. Get them in the mountains for 2, 3 days at a time, kind of ease them into it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie either. A little bit of it is, deep down, a little bit of it is a little bit selfishness. Like, we want to get our rams too, right? But and part of it is like, where the areas that we've been going the last few years, he wasn't ready physically to go where we went. And that was part of this last trip, was kind of to explore some new area that is a little easier access to get him in on. So I mean, he's been talking about Sheep Show since we left Sheep Show, man. Like, he's can't wait till February. So, I'm hoping in the next year or two, to at least get him out for some sort of a short sheep trip. But I think he understands that we want to get Mike and maybe Brandon around, but
Maybe.
but
Brand's like, screw you, man.
That being said, I know Mike would, and I think Brandon would too. If we found ourselves in a situation where we put William, or even in a couple years put his kid on a sheep, I don't think any one of us would not let the kid shoot, right? So for William, it's more just about being ready and physically able to do a hunt like that. And we took the last year he turned 10, got his core, took him on a deer hunt, and we had our ups and downs. He's grown up hunting. I think I had him out at 2 weeks old. Was the first time I took him out chicken hunting, right? So he's been hunting with me ever since. And when I finally put the gun in his hand, he kind of just had a moment of, am I ready to do this, right? So we kind of took a step back a little bit. He ended up getting his first deer last year, made an excellent shot. Very proud of him. He did awesome. For your first real hunt to sit in a tree stand for a week in -10 to -20, that's a lot for a 10-year-old, right? Like, so we had our ups and downs. At the end of the trip, we had a fantastic trip. We both got deer. We've been practicing shooting and all that stuff throughout the year. He's looking forward to our deer trip this year. And then we got the bison trip that I'm taking him on this year. And he also drew the youth Peace Country elk tag. So that'll be another trip that I'm going to take him on this year. So we'll get him into the mountains here very shortly, hopefully in the next couple of years. So
That's awesome. So okay, there's this year you guys were successful. Brandon, you're the goat whisperer without question. You've got a gift for it. What's the plan for next year? Is it sheep is like that the priority now? And now, Brandon, you've been on this, like you've been on this hunt, and you've experienced that and watched Anthony do his thing. Like, how's that driving your passion right now for the sheep bug?
Yeah, 100%. I could care less about goats right now.
Even while you're rocking the hat too, eh?
Sorry. My other sheep hat's all sweaty. I need a new one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. We're already talking about what we're doing for next year. Whether it's one trip or two trips again, I'm not sure, but we got to see what holidays for Uncle Mike looks like, and that'll kind of dictate when we go and who we're going with, stuff like that. If we're going for opener later, it was kind of nice going in September because there was like no bugs at all compared to opener where you're just getting annihilated from bugs. But so that was kind of nice. But yeah, well,
I don't think there's going to be a year we don't sheep hunt.
yeah, no,
I mean,
no,
it's honestly, even just being, sheep, goat, whatever, just being in the mountains.
Yeah.
Like, I've done a lot of moose hunting and stuff, and I still really enjoy my deer hunting, but I'm at the point where I'd rather buy a beef and go spend an extra 2 weeks in the mountain every year.
Yeah.
I'd rather just go stare at them
yeah,
than chase or run around in swamps. But 1 to 2 sheep hunts every year from here on out. Even if we all got rams on the wall, there's always somebody that needs a hand. We go back to this thing, man, this whole legends thing and everyone thinking we're awesome. I don't know why. We've got a list a mile long of people that want to come with us, and they're all great dudes and guys we'd love to spend time with, and so if we ever run out of the itch to kill a sheep for ourselves, we got a list a mile long of buddies that would love to go out. So we'll be helping somebody every year, if nothing else.
yeah. Same thing with goats. Like we packed out other people's goats more than we packed out our own. We've only shot one goat each and packed out way more than that. And we'll be doing the same for sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the thing about mountain hunting. Like, I don't know if there's something different about it, like goats and sheep. Like, it's just not, I don't know. It's like there's this benevolence thing where you're helping each other out. It's about getting somebody else their first sheep or their first experience or their first goat. Like, it's not about racking and stacking, and guys get that, right? And it's just a different vibe. It's a different feel, and it's super cool. And it's super cool to see two guys like yourselves that are hardcore hunters that go out and you worked really hard and you're rewarded and with a great sheep. And I have to say, like, I'm sure most people have seen your sheep now. It's pretty out there. But it's like that cape and that ram is just like they, like sheep hunters know, like that fucking cape is insane, man. You just don't get that. And, it almost looks like an October ram. It looks late season, right? It wasn't that late, really. It was like early September, but man, that's a beautiful sheep and beautiful ram. It's freaking amazing. Super cool.
I've always said right from day one, if I only ever kill one ram in my life, I don't care. Like, I want one, and I'll spend the rest of my days helping other people. I don't have, I'm totally fine with that. And, even more so now. The whole story behind the ram, where I killed it, the family connection to that spot, losing my grandpa this year, having a little piece of him up there with me, 9 years old, double broomed, that cape is the color I've always wanted. Like, I truly could hunt the rest of my days and never kill another ram, and I'd be just fine with that. That's a special ram to me. I mean, in this, he's not a record book ram. He's not crazy wide. He's not super long. He's got some mass. But yeah, he's 9, which was, I've had a lot of guys tell me, if you've never killed a sheep before, don't be scared to shoot a 7-year-old tipped out ram. And I wouldn't hold that against anybody. We made the decision to walk away from some 6-year-olds over the last couple of years. It just, to us, it meant more to walk away from them than it was to kill a sheep. And for myself with this ram, shooting one that was older than 8, shooting a 9-year-old ram and just everything about that ram, like, yeah, I'm happy to just be a pack mule for the rest of my days. That's what it is. So.
Well, I think the one thing that you can take away is that you walked away from those younger rams, and there were 7-year-olds you walked away from, and probably some 8-year-olds that were probably legal that you walked away from too, but like, what does this ram mean having done that, right? Like that's the thing is like, you look at, you made that decision but like, how much more does that ram mean knowing that you made those sacrifices when you probably could have taken a younger ram had you really wanted to, right? It's super, super, I think that says a lot. I would have to think, and I know in my experience, it's more meaningful when you do something like that.
Yeah, if we would have shot one of those rams on that first trip, we would never had done this second trip. We would never would have gotten that. We wouldn't have had the experience that we had with the bear and the porcupine and see all the new country and all that stuff. Yeah, it worked out perfectly.
It makes me appreciate walking away from those other rams even more than I already did.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for us, we've talked about it lots with Mike, right? Like, we're not going to make him pass on a 7-year-old ram that's full curl because, he's getting up there, and, I hope we get another 10 years with him. We probably got another 5 of him climbing mountains. I hope we get another 10 or 15, right? But you never know. And, if you would have put a ram that was 6 inches over the bridge of the nose, but 7 years old, would I have shot him? Maybe, probably. I would have had a hard time walking away from that. But, I'm not putting anybody on blast, like, each their own, right? It just, with those 6-year-olds for us, it just, we knew that we would regret shooting them, because we had set a goal for ourselves to look for an 8-plus-year-old ram. And the fact that he's 9 just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
But every one of those experiences this year just was that much more knowledge. And I'm grateful for every one of them. It makes the whole story just that much more special.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you guys earned some serious conservation karma points and then capitalized on it.
Yeah, for sure. So,
I'm going to do a shameless plug. I hate to do this, but the cool thing is you talked about you coming to the Penticton to the Sleuth Conservation, and like anyone that hasn't been part of the event, like it's the Anthony's and the Brandons of the world that are hanging out there that are telling these stories about the experience. So you're gonna have their rams that are going to be talking about that experience, and like that's what makes it happen for me. Like, our sheep world is like coming to the show and talking to you guys and hearing your stories, and it's just super cool to, like, it's such a community of people, and like these are our people, right? And you go on Spike, like, throughout the year we live through Spike Camp or through different forums or hunting forums or whatever the hell it is. But really, like, it's those touch points at those shows that are, like, for me, that's where I get my excitement, my energy to keep going throughout the year, and then, like, you get to live throughout the fall and do what we love to do. And I don't know, it's super cool, and I just can't wait till we're hoisting a cool one in Penticton and regaling your story again and celebrating your ram and everyone else's accomplishments this year and from years before, right?
the show is awesome. It's if anybody out there has kids that are thinking about bringing them, bring them. William had an absolute, like, he was on cloud 9 all weekend, right? There's a few other kids there too, and it's great seeing them bringing up the next generation of sheep hunters and conservationists. And 5 years ago, I was a guy who didn't know very many people, in the hunting community, kind of just stayed out of it for the most part. But I had that desire to sheep hunt, and I found myself in a situation where I didn't know where to start. Like I hunted with family. The last 10 years prior to that was just, basically strictly hunting with my uncles and my parents, chasing moose and elk and deer and bears and stuff. And I was getting that bug, and I didn't have a sheep hunting partner. And at that point, my uncles weren't really too interested in doing it again. I just made the plunge one year. I guess it was COVID when you guys had to do the online show, unfortunately. And I was watching online, and I reached out to Robbie there up north and just started BSing with him. And a couple hours later, I found myself a life member. And you know
Hit you
what?
with the sales pitch.
It's for my sheep hunting career, that was one of the best things I ever did, right? I never thought I'd be the person that was sitting here doing a podcast, that's for sure. But the amount of people that I've met, just stand up stellar dudes through Sheep Show, and the amount of stuff I've learned from guys, just where to look, and, general areas, and how to go about, what gear do you really need? What gear do you not need? Like, where to spend your money, where not to, just like, the Omers of the world and guys like that. Like, when I started, I called Omer one day out of the blue to ask him about I think it was like a spotting scope pocket or something. And it was like 4:45. The guy spent an hour and a half on the phone with me talking about sheep and goat hunting. I had never met the guy before in my life, never called him, never bought anything from him before. And it just snowballed from there, man. Like, the people in this community are absolutely awesome. And for anybody who's inspiring to get into it, come on down to the show, put a little money towards sheep, and so it's amazing the stuff that you'll learn and the amount of people that are willing to help you and get you at least pointed in the right direction. I owe a lot to a lot of people for this ram. Like, if it wasn't for going to the sheep show and connecting with people, who knows, maybe another 5-10 years before I kill a ram.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm very grateful for it, and we're really, really looking forward to it this year for sure. Trying to bring some more people, raise some more money.
Yeah, maybe they can win an antelope hunt.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt either,
Yeah, awesome, boys. Well, to both you and I look at that. Are you going to do a replica? Are you getting Brandon set up with a replica, or what's the plan there, buddy?
I don't know about that.
The same old story. You're going to cut the skull in half. You get one half, and the other guy gets. I've heard of guys doing that. I'm like, oh my god, there's this thing called a replica. If you're really anyway, I'm not judging, but
that's a conversation I haven't had with my taxidermist yet.
Yeah, it's crazy.
My taxidermy bill this year is not looking too good. I'm on thin ice.
Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, congrats to you both. Just a huge accomplishment. Really, really exciting. And thanks for sharing the story. And couldn't happen to two nicer guys. Amazing. And I just can't wait to see, where this journey goes from here with, well, of course, Brandon, and then, how Mike ends up with things. And then I'm super excited to see where William ends up with all of it too. So awesome, boys. Just thank you for taking your time to talk about it today.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
I think, I've been thinking about it. And I think this is the point where I finally got to pony up and up that level one more. And this guy too, I think.
That's the rules. You shoot a ram, you have to.
I think so, right? Yeah. I think I'm looking at silver this year, I think. Ooh. Yeah.
Right along with your taxidermy bills. Perfect. We'll take it.
Hopefully the wife doesn't listen to this.
Awesome. Congratulations, boys. Awesome. So happy
Thanks,
for you.
Guys.
Thanks, guys.